Right, what have we got today? It's another one from X-Star. It's small but very handy. So it is a charger from X-Star. It is the L4 Pro. So before I start this, I got a message from X-Star and they said, would you like to have a look at this? We won't tell you what to say. We won't tell you what to think. We don't have to see the video before it's released. We won't tell you to edit anything. It has to be honest. And I said, no problem. I will do an honest review. So that's what this is. Right, moving on quickly. So this is the X-Star L4 Pro. Now, as you can see, it's very small and compact. So because of that, it is designed for AA and AAA size factor cells. Now, the reason I say, size and form factor is it doesn't just do nickel metal hydride. It also they have to be rechargeable, obviously, but it also does lithium ion. But just bear in mind when they're saying lithium ion, they mean lithium ion 1.5 volts, which is the nominal voltage. So you'll find the nickel metal hydrides will be something like 1.2. In fact, I'll show you that. It should have on here there. So you see there, it's got 1.2 volts, high capacity NiMH, so nickel metal hydride. That's the battery chemistry. So we'll do nickel metal hydride and also lithium ion, as long as it is the same form factor at 1.5. So you're not going to be able to stick, something like an 18650 or a bigger cell like that. It's just for small cells. That's all for. It's supposed to be compact and something you can carry around, which I believe that this one does. Okay, so what are they claiming here? Let's have a quick look on the back here. So they are saying it is wide compatibility. It is, so it'll do two different, so it has to be rechargeable, but it will do two different chemistries at the same time. You can actually mix them as well. So when you're charging, you can see, right, I want to stick in a AAA there, a AA there. They can be one chemistry, then you can stick some lithium ions in. It will be independent on the channel, so it will examine the battery in that channel and then realize what it is and charge it for that capacity and for that chemistry. So you can mix and match, which is great, and I like to see that. It will refresh to maximize runtime. Yeah, there are refresh cycles, which I'm going to go into. There's a refresh and discharge function on this, but I will go over this in a moment. Fuller charge and lower heat. I don't know about fuller charge, but it certainly charged them up to where I would expect any charger to charge up to and then cut off automatically, so it stops charging when necessary. And lower heat, due to the design and small size, it is pretty good, to be quite honest. There was some warmth, but it certainly wasn't anything ridiculous. Smart and accurate battery recognition. It does, when you first put it in, it will recognize what the chemistry is. Compact and easy to use. It's very compact. Low voltage battery recovery. It'll use like a microvolt. You can do that with a dumb charger, to be quite honestly, on this, but some of the smart chargers now will have this battery recovery feature. So if you let a cell go far too low and you think, well, now when I put that in a smart charger, it's just not even recognizing it, I'll just get error. This can go into a mode which will trickle charge very slowly until it's able to then charge in a normal manner. So you can save a cell which has been allowed to deplete its voltage far too low. So that's another great feature, because they don't always have that. 3-stage charge. A lot of the night cores do exactly the same. They'll start at one speed, then go to another, and then slowly edge off. That's what I would expect. And it will timely stop when fully charged. Multiple protections are built in. So here's the important stuff here. So model number, it is a Type-C. Hooray! No more of this ridiculous micro USB, which used to annoy me. 5 volts, which is over your USB there, up to 2 amps. So that's your maximum, because it is, and this is their claim, and it seems to be, from what I'm looking at on my figures when I'm testing it, it seems to be the case that it is 0.5 of an amp per cell. There's 4 of them, so that's 2 amps in total. So 500 milliamp, 500 milliamp, 500 milliamp, so 2 in total. So that's what my testing shows as well. In fact, it says that there. So 0.5 of an amp, and obviously that's per slot. So there's 4 of them though, and it will do 1 at that rate. If you put 1 cell in, it doesn't say, well, I can go up to 2 amps, so I'm going to blast it up. It doesn't do that. So if speed is something that you're after and configurability, you probably need something like this where you can click on it and say, right, current, I want to raise the current. Although, in my personal opinion, I think 500 milliamps is okay for charging a cell of this size, and you're pushing it on a AAA even. You don't want it too high where the battery goes red hot and you run the risk of shortening the lifespan of that cell. That's just in my opinion there. And then it's got all that other stuff there. Anyway, this is boring. Let's get this open so you can actually see what it is that we are supposed to be looking at. So, get it out of the box. Yes, I'll put it back in the box because obviously I have tested it. I did momentarily read some of that manual, but I can't be bothered to go over it now. I'll go over it in my own way. So if you did want to read it, there it is in English. I've done this in 4K, so you can pause that bit, and you can pause that bit, and you can pause all of that, and read it, because I certainly ain't going to read it in this review. I already get accused of doing reviews that are far too long. So boosh, get that in the bin. And there is, I put their cable back in. I have tested it and put it back in. So yeah, that worked for me. And I'm going to use my own cables in showing you its functions. Okay, so boosh, get that in the bin. Right, so how does this work? So you need a Type C, because it is Type C on the back there, which is nice to see. No more we're having to put up with these micro USBs, which were annoying. There's no other outs or in betweens in here. There's no other cables that you need to connect or have out to charge something else. It just has these slots on there, and there are some slots on both sides there. There's no coil wind when it's in operation, or there certainly wasn't when I was testing. And it uses a little double over mechanism. So if you have a double A, you put it in like that, and then you have a space underneath. And if it is a triple A, so try a triple A here, it obviously goes further down into that groove, you see, and then it just goes in. And they're very secure. It's not like these ones. These don't need to be, these spring-loaded ones don't need to be as secure, and they can't be too tight, because they have to accommodate so many different cell sizes at different heights. Whereas this one, they don't come out, which is nice, and especially if you're knocking about, or you're going camping or something like that. So that's how that works. So you can only put 4 in, though. That doesn't go deep enough where you can put another cell over the top. So you have to make that decision yourself. So let's get this turned on, and I'm going to use their cable again. So I will plug it in. So pop that in there. I'm just going to run it from this power pack here. Boosh. So Type C, straight in. Right. Pop. Get that in. Right, so let's have a look at what you get here. So initially it lit up all of the LCD cells there, but you don't obviously need that. So it's telling us there, it's got at the bottom there, lithium ion 1.5 lithium ion. So it is presuming that that's the cell I'm going to put in, but that will change when I don't put that in. So this happens to be, let's try an Elinute Pro, and this is a nickel metal hydride, a triple A, and it is a 930 milliamp hour. 1.2 volts. So if I put that in, you'll notice on here it will recognize it. So if you do that, in fact, it's turned itself off. Hang on, that's my fault. Hang on, it's because I'm running it through a power pack. That's completely my fault, and I turned the power pack off. I'll run it through the proper cable. That's my fault, that's not their fault. Boosh. Right, okay, we've now got it running through the main. So again, Type C, and I'm actually running this Type C to Type C. So not only does it take a Type C connector, it will Type C to Type C, in other words, power delivery. So if I pop this in, it's going to recognize that there. So you see it's flashing, it's saying nickel metal hydride, and as you can see, it is charging. Now, bear in mind, sorry for that, not focusing there, bear in mind the indicator is moving up, so you can see graphically that it is charging. So that's not a problem. Now, in other modes, you will see that move in an opposite direction. So can you see how the battery is almost half full? So these segments don't just randomly move up and nothing else. You see how it only starts halfway. Sorry, that's not focusing there. There you go. So it starts on those 2, and then it's just adding the extra 2. So as that gets higher and higher, the standards, the ones that stay steady show you the capacity. So it's about half full, that one, and it is charging up. If I was to go to the different modes, and I'll just show you to change modes, you simply just press and hold the button. So it's in charge. There's discharge. Now straight off you'll be thinking, now Trailtrek, there's a problem here. You changed that to discharge, and yet it's still going up. Yes, I did go back a few times with X-Star, and we discussed this. It will do that initially because it needs to slightly charge the battery to make some assumptions about the cell. Once it's got that information, then, and I have checked multiple cells multiple times with multiple connections, that will start to move down. It takes a few minutes, and then it goes boom, 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 and you can see it going down. So it visually shows that it will discharge. So put your mind at rest, that does work, and I have tested with many brands of cells there. So again, if you want to put more in, it will do the same there. So it's going to find that, right, that's a nickel metal hydride. Bear in mind I'm in discharge mode, so at some point this one's going to start going down, and so will that one. So you can put another one in. Now, why would you want to discharge? Well, you might want to discharge just to completely, take a cell right down to its basic sort of level and then charge it back up again. Sometimes you might want to do that to remove memory effects, although I would argue now that we don't use the nickel metal, sorry, the old style batteries, the cadmium, lead cadmium ones used to suffer from memory effect. I find that less of an issue with the nickel metal hydrides, and certainly not something that I notice with lithium ion. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't notice that, but stick it in the comments down below if memory effect is something that you see. So you can discharge for that. If you thought, well, it is a memory effect that I'm trying to get rid of, or just refresh the cell, there is an actual proper refresh function. So that's the third mode. So click and hold. That's your refresh one. So in refresh, what it's going to do is it's going to fully charge it. It's then going to take all the juice out and then charge it again a few times. So it's trying to completely fill it and then completely discharge it. In other words, avoid sort of memory effects and stuff. But again, I've never noticed that problem with my cells. And when cells start becoming poor with their recharge cycles, I generally replace them anyway. And you get so many cycles now. You don't necessarily have to get like a lithium iron phosphate and things like that, where you can get thousands of cycles rather than hundreds. I find modern cells, especially good brand names, especially the Eneloop Pros, I'm getting like at least 300 up to 500 cycles, even if I'm hammering them on lights in the garden and things like that. So, but you've got that feature if you want it, and then to go back, you click and hold, and then it will go back to charge. It does have a timeout on this display, so if you leave this charging and don't press anything, it doesn't turn that off, but it limits how much power is going to that, just so it can put all the power to this. So I'm pretty impressed with it, and we'll go over some of the basics. So, low voltage recovery. If you did have a cell, which I don't have any knocking about, which are absolutely knackered, but if you did have a cell which was knackered, you can just stick it in. It's not going to get anywhere, and then it's going to try and do that reactivation. So it uses a tiny little current, and eventually it's then going to get to a stage when it can make its assessments, and it'll say, right, now I can start charging. It'll take quite a while. It can take about 10 minutes plus. I've done that in an old Nitecore charger with a really knackered lithium ion, and it came back, and I've still got that lithium ion now. So the feature does work. The other way around that, if you didn't have this, is you use a really dumb charger. Get the dumbest charge you can, and it just forces the current through, and eventually it will click in, and you can use it in chargers like this. But that's you don't need that with this one. So it does have its 3-stage charge, which again, some of the Nitecores do. A lot of other brands do that. It's just a different rate and a different process to use at different levels of capacity of the cell. And they say that gives an advantage. Okay, fair enough. Has auto stop, so once that's fully charged, it will stop. It has a way of detecting that. And as I say, although it doesn't say this on here, you're going to need a more complicated X-Star if you want that. But it doesn't say on here, so I have tested it. I've tested it through my voltage meters, and what it's telling me is it's around 0.5 of an amp. So they're telling the truth on the packaging there, and it's up to 2 amps. So just make sure that you're using a cable which is or an outlet which is giving you at least 2 amps, because you're going to need that. It will shut off if it doesn't get it, and you're trying to charge 4 cells at once. So let's go over some pros on this one. So for me, the pros on this one, you can mix cells. So if you had 2 lithium ions, the 1.5 versions, and then you had 2 nickel metal hydrides, you can put them both in at the same time. You don't have to just have one chemistry and not the other, and it will independently check those on per channel and go to the mode that it needs. I like that. I think that's a very handy feature. You're not having to waste time. It's very small and compact. I'll unplug it. Look at that. Look in my hand. Very, very small. Nice, compact. I like this cutout. There was some indication on the website that was saying that helps heat. It does, but I think the primary function is it just makes it easier to get cells out. Instead of having to do the old, how long's your fingernail? Right, watch this. Pull that and then pull it. And then sometimes that can pull this off. Well, you don't need to do that with this one. You just do that. You can literally just push through and just say, right, you want them cells out? There you go, and they're out. I think that's a good feature. And you can also tie this to stuff. I've put this in a camping bag, and I tied it to, it was actually to a strap. I wanted to put it in a carabiner, but that was a little bit too big for it. So it's got that. It is compact. It's Type C, and not only is it Type C, it is power delivery. So at the minute, that cable there, it's a Type C to Type C. So it does have power delivery, and that does work. It holds the cells nice and tightly, which I think is good. There was no silly noises or coil whine that I got off this, which I'm highly appreciative of. That's always a good thing. And it's got a good screen. I think that's a pretty good screen. Look, it gives you all the information that you need. Let's pop that in and I'll show you. Dead straightforward. What type of batteries? What's the feature that you're after there? What is the chemistry and what is it doing? Visually, instant, bang, it's telling you. Yes, it's not telling you voltage and not telling you current and all of this, but you probably don't. Not everybody needs that. I like having that feature, but do you need that and then graphs and what else do you need? For a simple, straightforward, cheap, small, compact charger, I think it's doing a really good job. It does have the low voltage recovery, which I've discussed before, and it does have the discharge and refresh functions. I guess by having that in, that's why it gets the name Pro, because when I first saw Pro, I thought, oh, is this going to be like a really high, sort of high current system here? But it isn't. It's very sensible, and it's not pumping through too much current for these type and size of cells, which shouldn't be too high anyway. So in regards cons, some might say, well, you can't adjust the current and go faster. I personally wouldn't want to go faster than this on this size of cell. That's just me. Some people might say, well, who cares? It might just, knock a little bit of the life off, but I haven't got all day to wait. Oh, okay, that's fair enough. That's your decision, but I think that's perfectly adequate. I can't really think of any cons, to be quite honest. I mean, you could probably argue, why isn't it showing you the voltage of the cell? But does it really matter? Not everybody who gets one of these will go, right, well, I know that is 1.2 when it's full, and I know that a lithium ion should be 1.5 if it's a AA, and it's not a multi-cell system. Now, on a multi-cell system, you kind of need to know these things, so you could say, right, that's an 18650. I know that should be 4.2 volts to right at the top, and then you know where the cutoff levels are as it goes lower. I think that's more important than that, so I don't think that they would necessarily need this. So I'm finding it hard to think of a con on this. I haven't really found one yet. I'll show you like up close there. There's the little things on the back there. So input 5 volt, 2 amps. Output, there's your outputs for lithium ion and nickel metal hydride. So again, it's hard for me to think of anything that I don't like about this. And I certainly trust X-Star. I've never had a bad X-Star. I've still even got my old camping X-Star here with where you can put cells in and charge from it, which still works. In fact, I'll show you that if I use this cable just to show the power delivery. So an X-Star, this is X-Star to X-Star. There you go. So there, 0.1 of an amp. So it's charging there. Boom. So that's actually dropped now. That's only 0.1 of an amp, if that's accurate. But in my testing, when I used this, it was certainly up to and around the 0.5 of an amp. In other words, 500 milliamp hours max on each cell. So there's not a lot I can say that I don't like about this. I'm going to give this, for what it is, I don't know why they put the Pro, because really I suppose they've put Pro because it doesn't just have charging, it also has discharging, and it also has a refresh. Maybe that's why they've got the Pro, and you don't need any of the other features. Okay, I kind of get that, but I'm going to definitely give this a 9, because I've had this for a number of weeks now. I've had it for, let's have a think, I've been testing 3 weeks in total, and I've been back and forwards a few times with X-Star just on various features that I needed more information on, and they came straight back to me. And any questions I had for the engineers, again, straight back for me, and we went over the discharge cycles and things like that, and the refresh, and why is it going up when it should go down? When it does go down, and I've tested it with various ones, but it takes time to do that, then it goes down. So if you're wondering why that's going up, that is why. That is the explanation. Okay, so I'm going to have to give it a 9. It does a great job. I think it does a really good job. I can't think of many things that I don't like about it, other than maybe you could have a special Pro version where you could maybe put more juice in if you were in a rush. I don't know, like a super fast charge mode. I don't know. Maybe that's damaging cells though. So I'm gonna have to give it a 9. I try to keep this short. It was supposed to be a 10-minute sort of review, but that never happens on my channel. I'll quickly show you the rest of the stuff here. Easy compatible, full of charge. We've already gone over that. There's the back of the box. So I've enjoyed using this. 3 weeks, not had any problems other than the things that went back to X-Star and they explained. So again, great company. I love dealing with them. No matter what you've got to say, they'll pass it on to engineers, which not all companies do that, so that fills me with a hell of a lot of confidence. So X-Star, another good job. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. So well done, and I will let you get on with your day. Goodbye.